Dad perfect events. My daughter's husband and his brother threw her off their yacht into the Atlantic Ocean at midnight. She was 4 months pregnant. As I screamed into the darkness, watching her disappear into the black water, they laughed and said she was being dramatic. Then they turned the yacht around and headed back to shore, leaving her there. When the Coast Guard finally pulled her from the water 3 hours later, barely alive, I made one phone call to my older brother. I said only 4 words. Time to end them. Before I tell you what happened next, if you enjoy stories about justice and revenge, please subscribe and like this video. Let me know in the comments what state you're watching from. I'm curious to know. I'm Edward Collins, 58 years old, a retired construction foreman who spent 35 years building houses, not navigating the treacherous waters of wealthy, powerful families. I'm a quiet man by nature. I raised my daughter Rachel alone after my wife died when Rachel was just 8. I taught her to be kind, to work hard, to trust people. I taught her wrong. The evening started innocent enough. Rachel and I were guests aboard the Chambers family's luxury yacht, the Serenity, for what they called their annual autumn celebration. It was late September, and we were anchored off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. The air had that crisp New England bite to it, the kind that warns you winter isn't far behind. Rachel had married Tyler Chambers 3 years earlier. He was a CEO of his family's real estate company, handsome in that polished prep school way that wealthy families seem to breed. His younger brother Lance was a defense attorney, always with that practiced smile and firm handshake. Money and power radiated from the Chambers like heat from asphalt in summer. From the beginning, I didn't trust them. Call it a father's intuition, or maybe just the instinct of a man who'd spent decades reading blueprints and understanding that what looks solid on the surface can hide structural problems underneath. But Rachel loved Tyler, or thought she did, and I held my tongue. What father wants to be the one who ruins his daughter's happiness? That night on the yacht, about 40 guests mingled on the deck, champagne glasses in hand, the sound of jazz floating from hidden speakers. Rachel stood near the railing, wearing a navy dress that concealed her small baby bump. She'd told Tyler about the pregnancy just that morning. His reaction, she'd said, had been strange. Not happy, not angry, just cold, distant. I watched him now across the deck, deep in conversation with his brother Lance. They kept glancing at Rachel, then looking away, their expressions unreadable. Something about their body language set off alarm bells in my head. I'd learned over the years to trust those instincts. Around 10 o'clock, most of the guests had moved below deck to the main salon where dinner was being served. Rachel excused herself to use the restroom. I was talking to an elderly couple about their summer home in Nantucket when I heard Tyler's voice cut through the evening air. "Rachel, come here for a moment." I turned. Tyler and Lance stood at the far end of the deck near the stern railing. Rachel walked toward them, smiling. Even from 20 feet away, I could see she was trying, always trying to win their approval. "What is it?" she asked. Tyler leaned close to her, said something I couldn't hear. Rachel's smile faltered. She shook her head, started to turn away. That's when Tyler grabbed her arm. Lance stepped forward on her other side. I started moving toward them, my heart suddenly pounding. Something was wrong, very wrong. "Let go of me," Rachel said, her voice rising. "What are you doing? Just teaching you not to trap a man with fake pregnancy news," Tyler said loud enough now that I could hear. "You think I'm stupid? I know what you're trying to do. It's not fake. I'm actually pregnant." Rachel's voice was panicked now. "Tyler, stop!" She tried to pull away, but he held firm. Lance stepped behind her, blocking her escape. They had her cornered against the railing. I was running now, shouting, "Get away from her!" But I was too far, too slow. A 58-year-old man trying to cross a yacht deck in dress shoes. Tyler looked at his brother. Some silent communication passed between them. Then, in one swift motion, they both pushed. Rachel went over the railing backward, her scream cutting off as she hit the water. The sound was wrong, too sharp, like she'd struck something hard before the water took her. I reached them in seconds, grabbed Tyler by his jacket. "What did you do? What did you do?" He shoved me back. I stumbled, caught myself against the railing, and looked down into the black water. Nothing. Just darkness and the sound of waves against the hull. "She'll swim to shore," Lance said calmly, adjusting his cufflinks. "It's only half a mile. Teaches her a lesson about lying to get her hands on family money." "She's pregnant," I screamed at them. "She can't swim?" "In that water." It's 45 degrees, Tyler laughed. Actually laughed. Pregnant? Right. Next she'll claim the baby's mine and ask for child support. I've seen women like her before. I didn't think, I just moved. I tried to grab the life preserver mounted on the bulkhead, but Lance stepped in front of me. Mr. Morrison, I suggest you calm down. This is a private family matter. Get out of my way. I shoved past him, grabbed the life preserver, and hurled it as far as I could into the darkness where Rachel had fallen. It hit the water with a splash I couldn't even see. I looked over the railing, straining my eyes. The yacht's lights only illuminated about 20 feet of churning black water. Beyond that, nothing but darkness. "Rachel!" I screamed. "Rachel, can you hear me?" Silence. Just the slap of waves and the distant sound of jazz still playing from the speakers. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, and told the dispatcher we had a person overboard. I gave them our coordinates, our location, everything I could think of. Tyler walked past me, heading below deck. "Dramatic as always," he said to his brother. "She's probably already climbing onto the shore, planning her next manipulation." I wanted to throw him overboard. I wanted to break his jaw. But I couldn't take my eyes off the water, couldn't stop scanning for any sign of my daughter. "Why didn't you jump in after her?" someone asked behind me. One of the guests had emerged from below, drawn by the commotion. It was Mrs. Thompson, the elderly woman I'd been talking to earlier. She looked horrified. I turned. "I can't swim well," I said, my voice breaking. "The water's too cold, too rough. If I go in, we'll both die." The Coast Guard said to stay put, keep watching, keep calling her name. But even as I said it, the guilt crushed down on me like a physical weight. My daughter was out there drowning, and I was standing on this deck doing nothing. 20 minutes passed, then 40. The Coast Guard arrived, searchlights sweeping the black water. I stood at the railing the entire time, calling Rachel's name until my voice was gone. Tyler and Lance had gone below deck, acting as though nothing had happened. I heard Tyler telling other guests that Rachel had decided to take a swim and must have swum to shore. At the 2-hour mark, I heard one of the Coast Guard officers on his radio. "We've got something." I gripped the railing so hard my knuckles turned white. "Alive!" another voice crackled back. Long pause. Too long. Barely. Hypothermia. Head trauma. She's unconscious. We need a medevac now. They brought her up in a rescue basket. I barely recognized her. Her face was blue-gray, her lips purple. There was a gash on her forehead, blood matted in her hair. She wasn't moving. "Is she breathing?" I asked the medic. "Barely. We need to move fast." They loaded her onto the Coast Guard vessel, and I started to follow. "Sir, we need you to stay here," one of the officers said. "We need statements. This is a crime scene now." "That's my daughter." "We know, sir. The helicopter will take her to Boston Medical Center. You can meet her there. But right now, we need you to tell us exactly what happened." I looked at Rachel's still form being carried away. Every instinct screamed at me to go with her. But the officer was right. If I left now, Tyler and Lance would control the narrative. They'd make this disappear like it never happened. "All right," I said. "I'll tell you everything." I gave my statement to the Coast Guard. I told them exactly what I'd seen. Tyler and Lance deliberately pushing Rachel overboard. I told them about the pregnancy, about Tyler's accusation, about how they'd laughed. The young officer taking my statement looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Morrison, you understand we'll need to investigate this thoroughly. The Chambers family is, well, they're very wealthy. These accusations are serious. More serious than attempted murder. I'm just saying this will be complicated." He was right. By the time I got to the hospital 3 hours later, lawyers had already arrived. Not my lawyers, theirs. 2 men in expensive suits stood in the ICU waiting room, talking in low voices with a hospital administrator. A doctor approached me. She was young, exhausted looking. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Dr. Williams. Your daughter is stable but critical. She has severe hypothermia, a concussion, and she aspirated a significant amount of water. We're doing everything we can." She hesitated. "The baby, we don't know yet. It's too early to tell if the pregnancy is still viable. The next 48 hours are crucial." I sank into a chair. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching this happen to someone else. One of the lawyers approached me. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Nathan Brooks, representing the Chambers family. We're deeply concerned about Mrs. Chambers' accident. It wasn't an accident. and we want to assure you that Tyler and Lance are cooperating fully with authorities. However, we would caution you against making inflammatory statements that could constitute defamation. Get away from me. Mr. Morrison, I understand you're upset, but I stood up. I'm not a violent man. Never have been. But in that moment, if that lawyer had said one more word, I might have become one. He must have seen something in my eyes because he stepped back, nodded curtly, and retreated to his colleague. I sat back down and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from rage. A cold, quiet rage that had been building since I watched my daughter disappear into the black water. I scrolled through my contacts and found the name I was looking for, Keith Morrison, my older brother. I hadn't spoken to him in almost 2 years, not since a family argument about something so trivial I couldn't even remember what it was now. Keith had spent 30 years with the FBI, most of it in their financial crimes division. He was a forensic accountant, the kind of investigator who could look at a spreadsheet and see the crimes hidden in the numbers. He'd put away corrupt politicians, mob bosses, corporate criminals. He'd retired 5 years ago to a small town in Vermont, but I knew he still had connections, still had skills. I hit dial. He answered on the third ring. Dale. His voice was cautious. We hadn't parted on good terms. Keith. I hadn't called him that since we were kids. I need your help. Silence. Then, what happened? I told him everything. My voice stayed level, controlled, like I was describing a building design instead of my daughter's attempted murder. When I finished, there was a long pause. These people, Keith said finally, you're talking about the Chambers family. They own half the commercial real estate in Boston. Tyler Chambers is worth maybe $50 million. I know who they are, Keith. I know what I'm asking. Another pause. I could almost hear him thinking, weighing the risks. Where are you right now? He asked. Boston Medical Center, ICU waiting room. Stay there. Don't talk to any more lawyers. Don't talk to police unless I'm present. Don't talk to anyone. I'm leaving Vermont now. I'll be there in 3 hours. Keith, I'm not doing this for you, Dale. I'm doing it for Rachel. That little girl sent me a birthday card last year, even though we weren't speaking. She didn't have to do that. My throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If what you told me is true, this is going to get ugly. The Chambers will use every resource they have to bury this. Are you prepared for that? I looked through the glass window at Rachel's room, at the machines breathing for her, at the monitors tracking her fading vital signs. Yes, I said, I'm prepared. I stayed at the hospital all night. Rachel remained unconscious, her condition listed as critical. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, a nurse told me the pregnancy had ended. The trauma, the hypothermia, the stress. It had been too much. My daughter had lost her baby. I sat in that plastic chair and felt something inside me break, not crack, break completely. Whatever mercy I might have felt, whatever impulse toward forgiveness, died in that moment. Keith arrived just before dawn. He looked older than I remembered, his hair mostly gray now, lines deep around his eyes. But those eyes were still sharp, still taking in everything. He sat down next to me without a word. We sat in silence for several minutes. Tell me again, he said finally, every detail. Don't leave anything out. So I did. This time I included things I hadn't told the Coast Guard, like how I'd seen Tyler and Lance whispering together earlier in the evening, how they'd been watching Rachel all night with expressions I couldn't read, how, when she'd told Tyler about the pregnancy that morning, he'd immediately called his brother. Keith listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Okay, he said, here's what we're dealing with. The Chambers family has been in business for 40 years. They're wealthy, connected, and very, very careful. If Tyler did this, if he deliberately tried to harm Rachel, there's a pattern. There's always a pattern. What do you mean? Men like him don't just suddenly decide to commit violence. There's always a history. We need to find it. How? I still have friends in the Bureau, and I know a few journalists who owe me favors, people who aren't afraid of going after powerful men. He looked at me. But Dale, you need to understand something. If we do this, we're declaring war. The Chambers will come after us with everything they have. Our finances, our reputations, maybe even our safety. Are you sure? I thought about Rachel lying in that hospital bed. I thought about my grandchild who would never be born. I thought about Tyler laughing as my daughter drowned. I'm sure. Keith nodded slowly. Then, here's what we're going to do. First, we don't react. We don't make accusations. We appear to believe their story, that it was an accident. We play nice. I can't. Yes, you can. Because while they think we're backing down, I'm going to dig. I'm going to find out everything about the Chambers family's past. Every business deal, every relationship, every skeleton in every closet, and when I'm done, we're going to destroy them. The next 3 days were torture. Rachel remained in a medically induced coma while her body tried to recover. I sat by her bed, held her hand, and said nothing to anyone except doctors and nurses. Tyler visited once. He walked in with flowers, his lawyer hovering behind him, and started talking about how tragic this accident had been. I said nothing, just looked at him until he left. The Chambers family sent gifts, expensive fruit baskets, flowers, a card expressing their deepest sympathies for this unfortunate incident. I threw them all away. Meanwhile, Keith was working. He called me every evening with updates, always brief, always careful about what he said on the phone. I found something, he said on day 4, Tyler's business practices. There's a pattern of financial irregularities, offshore accounts, tax evasion schemes, and I found something else. What? 3 women who used to work for his company. They all filed complaints about harassment. The complaints disappeared, and they were all paid settlements with NDAs. Can they testify? If we can break the NDAs. And I found out something else, Dale. Tyler has a trust fund clause in his prenuptial agreement. If Rachel divorces him, she's entitled to half of his assets, about $25 million. But there's another clause. If she dies while pregnant, he gets everything, including a $10 million life insurance policy. Understanding hit me like cold water. Rachel found out she was pregnant, told him the morning, and suddenly he's looking at losing $25 million, plus paying child support for 18 years. Or he could solve all his problems with one push. That's what I think, Keith said, but proving it is another matter. They'll say it was an accident, a tragic misunderstanding. They've got lawyers, money, political connections. We need more. What do we need? We need to make Tyler nervous enough to make a mistake. Keith came to Boston the next day. We sat in a hospital cafeteria that smelled of bad coffee and antiseptic, and he laid out his plan. I've been making calls, as he said, talking to old contacts, journalists I trust. I've given them background information about Tyler's business practices, about the harassment complaints, about some questionable financial dealings I found in the company records. What kind of financial dealings? The kind that involve offshore accounts and donations that exceed legal limits. Nothing concrete yet, but enough to make people curious, enough to start asking questions. When? Tomorrow. The Boston Globe is running a story. Questions surround Chambers' real estate practices. It's not an accusation, just questions. But it'll get attention. Tyler will know it came from us. Let him know. I want him scared. Scared people make mistakes. The story ran the next morning. I watched the news coverage from Rachel's room. She was awake now, lucid, but devastated. She held my hand as we watched Tyler give a press conference, his face grave, his voice measured. These allegations are completely baseless, he said. My company has always operated within the law, and these attacks on our family during this difficult time are unconscionable. As for the recent incident involving my wife, we are cooperating fully with the Coast Guard investigation. It was a horrible accident, and our hearts go out to Rachel and her father during this difficult time. He was good, calm, sympathetic, believable. For a moment, I wondered if we had any chance at all. Then Keith called. Turn on Channel 7 now. I found the channel. A press conference was starting. A woman I didn't recognize stood at a podium, her hands shaking slightly. My name is Michelle Parker, she said. 3 years ago, I worked as an office manager for Chambers Real Estate. During that time, Tyler Chambers sexually harassed me repeatedly. When I reported it to HR, my complaint disappeared. I was paid money to stay quiet and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Today, with the help of legal counsel, I am breaking that agreement. Tyler Chambers is a dangerous man who has used his wealth to silence his victims for years. I am here to say no more. The cafeteria went quiet. Everyone was watching. My phone buzzed. Keith again. That's not all. I found 2 more women. They're all coming forward. And I found something else, Dale. Financial records showing Tyler had been researching ways to break prenuptial agreements 3 weeks before Rachel told him about the pregnancy. He knew she was trying to get pregnant. He was already planning how to get rid of her if it happened. Can you prove that? His search history, his lawyer's bills, emails, all of it. And here's the best part. I found out who was on the yacht that night. One of the guests was a retired Coast Guard captain. I spoke to him this morning. He saw the whole thing. He's willing to testify that he saw Tyler and Lance deliberately push Rachel. My hands started shaking. Why didn't he say something before? He tried. The Chambers lawyers got to him first, told him he was mistaken, that he'd been drinking. But now, with everything else coming out, he's ready to tell the truth. Over the next week, everything unraveled for the Chambers family. The FBI opened an investigation into their business practices. The Massachusetts State Police reopened the case as attempted murder. Tyler was arrested and charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, and insurance fraud. Lance was charged as an accomplice. I sat with Rachel and watched it all happen. She was getting stronger every day, physically at least. Emotionally, she was destroyed. She'd lost her baby, her marriage, her trust in people. She cried a lot, didn't talk much. I should have listened to you, she said one evening. You never trusted them. You wanted to believe in love. That's not wrong. It almost killed me, but it didn't. You're alive. You're strong. And they're going to pay for what they did. The trial took 8 months. I sat in that courtroom every single day, watching Tyler squirm in his seat while witness after witness testified against him. The retired Coast Guard captain, other guests from the yacht who'd heard Tyler's threats earlier in the evening, financial experts who laid out the trust fund motive, medical examiners who explained how Rachel could have died from hypothermia and drowning. Tyler's lawyers tried everything. They claimed Rachel had jumped, that it was a suicide attempt. They claimed she'd climbed on the railing herself and fallen accidentally. They painted her as emotionally unstable, manipulative, a gold digger who trapped their client with a fake pregnancy. Rachel sat through all of it with quiet dignity. When she finally took the stand and told her story, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. She described how Tyler had grabbed her arm, how Lance had blocked her escape, how they'd both pushed her backward over the railing. She talked about the freezing water, about struggling to stay afloat, about thinking she was going to die alone in that darkness. Did you fake your pregnancy? The prosecutor asked. No, Rachel said, her voice steady. I was 4 months pregnant with Tyler's child. I lost the baby because of what he did to me. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood up and read the verdict. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant Tyler Chambers guilty. Tyler's face went white. He turned to look at his lawyer, then at Lance, then across the courtroom at me. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just looked at him, and I hoped he understood. This was what happened when you hurt someone's child. Lance's trial came next. Keith had gathered enough evidence to charge him with conspiracy to commit murder and obstruction of justice. That trial took 4 months, but the result was the same. Guilty. The judge sentenced Tyler to 25 years in federal prison. Lance got 15 years. The Chambers family business collapsed under the weight of the scandal and federal investigation. All their assets were frozen, their accounts seized. Rachel was awarded $30 million in a civil lawsuit, money from their insurance companies and remaining assets. She donated half of it to charities for domestic violence victims and used the rest to start a foundation in memory of the child she lost. 2 years have passed since that night on the yacht. Rachel is doing better, not great, but better. She went back to school, got her master's degree in landscape architecture. She's designing parks now, creating beautiful spaces where children can play safely. She doesn't date, says she's not ready, might never be ready. I don't push. She's 30, years old, and she's been through enough. She'll heal on her own schedule. Keith and I talk regularly now. We repaired what was broken between us. Turns out almost losing someone you love puts petty arguments in perspective. He's writing a book about the case, says it's going to be called The CEO's Secrets, How Wealth Corrupts. He asked if I wanted to co-author it. I declined. I don't need to tell this story over and over. I lived it once. That's enough. Sometimes Rachel asks me if I think what we did was revenge or justice. I tell her I think it's both. And I think that's okay. Because here's what I learned. Quiet men aren't weak men. For decades, I'd been quiet, peaceful, accommodating. I let things slide, avoided conflict, didn't make waves. People like the Chambers counted on that. They counted on people like me looking away, staying silent, being afraid. But they forgot something important. Quiet doesn't mean powerless. It just means patient. And patience, when combined with determination and truth, is the most powerful weapon in the world. Rachel and I have dinner every Sunday now. We don't talk about Tyler or Lance. We don't talk about that night on the yacht. We talk about her projects, about the garden she's designing for a children's hospital, about the future. Last Sunday, she told me she's thinking about starting to date again. Not seriously. Just coffee with a colleague from work, a landscape designer who seems kind. "What do you think?" she asked. I looked at my daughter, this strong, resilient woman who'd survived what should have killed her, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. "I think you should trust your instincts," I said. "And I think you should know that I'm always here, watching, protecting." She smiled. "I know, Dad, I know. The truth is, I'll never stop watching, never stop protecting. That's what fathers do. We build things, homes, careers, families, and when someone tries to destroy what we've built, we don't just get angry, we get even. The Chambers thought they could throw my daughter away like trash and face no consequences. They thought their money and power made them untouchable. They were wrong. Sometimes the people you underestimate are the most dangerous. This quiet construction foreman who built houses learned something over 35 years. When you understand structures, you understand how they fail, how to find the weak points, how to bring everything crashing down. I built my life on solid foundations. The Chambers built theirs on lies, violence, and arrogance. In the end, only one structure was left standing. That's the story of how a quiet man ended 2 powerful men. I did it with patience, with help from my brother, and with the one weapon they never expected: the truth. Men my age, we've learned a few things about life. We know that loud doesn't mean strong. We know that money doesn't make you untouchable. And we know that when you mess with a man's family, you better be prepared for what comes next. Because sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one you didn't notice. The one who's been watching, waiting, building his case brick by brick, just like he built houses for 35 years. We quiet ones, we don't make threats. We make promises. And we keep them. That's all I have to say about that. When you build something with your own hands for 35 years, you learn that the strongest foundations are built on truth and patience. And when those foundations are threatened, a quiet man can move mountains. They say blood is thicker than water, but I learned something that night on the yacht. A father's love runs deeper than both, and there's no force on earth more dangerous than a quiet man protecting his family.